2021 was a pretty crazy year for gaming, for both good reasons and bad, depending on how you look at it. For starters, we got some really good games that set the bar high, but we also got some pretty bad games that showed us just how low you can go. There was a lot of good that happened this year, such as great games getting better and companies banding together to make the gaming industry a better place. On the other hand, we had corporations taking consumers for granted and releasing unfinished products and putting all that sweet cash in their pocket while their employees struggled to make ends meet. This video isn't a celebration of the bad, but instead all of the amazing games we, or specifically I, played this year. Here are my 10 favorite games that I played in 2021. Final Fantasy XIV had a huge boom in popularity this year. There were so many people playing that Square Enix had to stop selling the game twice. I decided to dive into it myself, and I am so glad I did. Final Fantasy XIV is one of the most addictive and rewarding games that I have played, with an amazing community to back it up. You can tell how much love and care the developers have poured into Final Fantasy XIV, especially when you consider how much of a mess it was when it first launched almost a decade ago. With the launch of one of the best expansions I have ever had the pleasure of playing, Endwalker, Final Fantasy XIV has no signs of slowing down, ever.
We're up 47. I've got the first row files compiled and uploaded. Go over them and let me know what you need.
Hitman 3 was one of those games they forgot released this year, but it came out all the way back in the beginning of January. Nonetheless, I am more than happy to be able to include it on this list. Hitman 3 caps off IOI's rebooted Hitman trilogy, The World of Assassination. With every single entry, IOI tricks us into thinking Hitman can't possibly get any better, despite them proving us wrong each time. Hitman 3 is no exception, with it being the magnum opus of stealth games in general. Since its release, I've only grown to appreciate it more, with Hitman 3's replay value being the highest in the series. Halo is my favorite franchise ever made. With it comes some of my earliest gaming memories that will stick with me to this day. Halo Infinite is supposed to cap off 343's new Halo trilogy, which hasn't been well received by fans. Halo Infinite's campaign is a good one, but doesn't have anything on the original trilogy. The reason Halo Infinite is on this list is the multiplayer. Progression and event issues aside, this is the most fun I've ever had in a first-person shooter's multiplayer. More fun than any other Halo game. The only problem is the lack of incentive to play the game due to the horrible Battle Pass progression system. Other than that, Infinite earns its place on this list. One day this year, I was browsing Xbox's deals page on the Microsoft Store, and one game caught my eye. The description read, "You are Wei Shen, an undercover cop trying to take down the notorious triads from the inside." That has got to be one of the coolest descriptions ever, and I immediately bought the game for like only $5, and I'm so glad I did. What I found was a city that felt so real and immersive with a gripping narrative to go with it. The combat is extremely fun to mess around with and try new moves and weapons. There's such a variety in missions and things to do that make Sleeping Dogs hard to put down. Is anybody really surprised that Forza Horizon 5 is on this list, being the highest rated game of the year? Just like IOI with Hitman, Playground improves their formula with Forza every single time. The newest entry in the open world racing series is no exception. Everything has been fine-tuned to near perfection, giving Forza Horizon 5 a good chance of surpassing its predecessor. Guilty Gear is known for three things: heavy metal soundtrack, anime, and being an anime fighter. I don't usually enjoy these things, but I love them in Guilty Gear Strive. So when I say that this game is pretty good, you should be thinking that this is one of the best fighting games ever made.
That is bullshit blazing, still my heart is blazing. If the words kill me, I don't need a new one under you. Soon you will know, we already know the smell of the game.
Hades is another game that I unfortunately missed out on in 2020, but I really wanted to try it out. Luckily, through the magic of Game Pass, I was able to, and I'm so glad I did. Hades is a roguelite. meaning if you die even once, you restart the entire game. This might seem hard, and it's because it is, but the more you level up and build your character, the closer and closer you'll get to reaching Olympus. Everything about this game is amazing, from the combat, storytelling, voice acting, art style, especially the soundtrack. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is one of the oldest games on this list, but it doesn't feel like it at all. I'm extremely surprised that standout feature to be able to slice literally anything hasn't been used anywhere else. This makes gameplay extremely fun to cut up your enemies into hundreds of pieces and string together combos with hulking robots. If I haven't sold you on this game, then maybe its soundtrack will.
Probably been a long time since you've had a visitor. I hope you don't mind pop-ins.
For me, Psychonauts 2 came out of nowhere. Sure, I had seen trailers for it, but nothing really seemed to click with me. With it being a first-party Xbox game, it arrived day one on Game Pass, so I decided to give it a shot. What I found was one of the best 3D platformers I have ever played. All of Psychonauts 2's mechanics are fleshed out and put to use. The art style I ended up falling in love with as I explored all these levels that felt so vivid and alive. The story was by far my favorite part. Most 3D platformers and platformers in general are aimed at a younger audience. Sure, a kid could play Psychonauts 2 and enjoy it, but they aren't going to understand the more adult themes that are put on display.
The sky, and I can see each molecule through my cosmic eye.
Before we get into my game of the year, let's go over some honorable mentions that didn't quite make this list, but are still worth checking out. Resident Evil Village, Cyber Shadow, Age of Empires 2. I am an idiot for waiting 5 years to play Bloodborne. The whole Souls-like thing always scared me, and I always thought that I would get too frustrated with the game since Bloodborne is known for being really hard and I would never pick it up again. Instead, after beating it 3 times, I have still not stopped playing it. The combat is so much fun and satisfying that it's hard for me to play any other melee-focused action game. The way the story is delivered to you is so unique and interesting that I wish other games that weren't Souls-likes tried it. Bloodborne has the most replayability out of any game I've played, since there are so many different weapons, builds, playstyles, and runs you can try. This game is phenomenal, and if you haven't played it, go do that now. Well, that was my top 10 games that I played this year. I can't wait for what 2022 will bring. Hopefully it'll be just as good as this year.